Hi FirePower community, Coach Maria back with another nutrition video. Today's topic is picky eating, and this might be something that you're experiencing at home. Maybe it's with your kids or your spouse or your partner, or maybe it's you want to learn how to eat some more adventurous foods. Either way, some of the tips in these videos can help you navigate tricky meal times and get all of your family members to be open to trying new foods instead of just gravitating towards their same favorites. Now today I'm going to be sharing some tips from unlockfood.ca, which is run by Dietitians of Canada, as well as Feeding Littles, which is a really great online resource, also run by two dietitians, Megan and Judy, and their approach is a bit geared more towards childhood eating. Either one, they are fantastic resources to learn how to diversify your family's food choices and get everybody on the same page when it comes down to eating healthy, balanced meals. Now, the first two tips that we're going to talk about relates to what your role is as a caregiver, as a parent, and what roles or what responsibilities you need to delegate to your child or to your care receiver. This comes from dietitian Ellen Satter, and she coined the term the Satter Division of Responsibility, or SDOR. And what this tells us essentially is that as a parent, you get to decide three things: the what, the where, and the when of food and of meal times. The what means the kinds of foods you're serving. So your responsibility is to offer a nutritious selection of foods from all the food groups. In my last video, we talked a little bit about food quality and what we want our plate to look like. So your job is to offer foods from each food group, or to make the meal as balanced and as nutritious as possible. The where means, where are you serving the meal? Is it at a dining room table? We all have movie nights, we sometimes like to eat in front of the TV, but on a regular basis, are you sitting down at the table to eat with your family, or are you guys eating in the car? Remember that to cultivate mindfulness in a meal, we want to set a distraction-free setting outside of obviously regular family interaction, because it allows us to focus on our meal, to actually be in tune with how our food is making us feel, and it's a great chance to connect with our family members over whatever it is that we are dining. Now, the when of the meal is also pretty important. This means that you're offering your family meals at regular times during the day. In my last video, we talked about how we want to avoid large gaps in between meals, because sometimes it can make us overly hungry and we don't end up making the best choices at the next meal. Now, when it relates to kids, having a consistent meal schedule allows them a sense of predictability and of knowing when their next meal is. This keeps them from just grazing or snacking throughout the day, and actually allows them to develop an appetite. One thing that we're going to talk about as this video goes on is that kids eat better when they're hungry, and they're more likely to try new foods when they're hungry. So by keeping them on a regular meal schedule and avoiding eating outside of that schedule, we're able to keep their appetite in check until it's time to eat the meal. That way they'll be more likely to eat what you serve them. Now, your child's responsibility, or your spouse or your partner's responsibility, they get to decide two things. So they get to decide the if and the how much of the meal. So you've done your job as a parent, or caregiver, and you've presented an array of nutritious foods. Now it's up to them to choose what they're going to eat from what you've offered them. They also get to decide how much they're going to eat. Any parent knows fighting with your children over how much they eat is a lost battle. And this is because children are very naturally intuitive. If they are hungry enough, they will eat the foods in front of them, regardless of if they are their favorite foods or not. I acknowledge that as a parent, it is extremely difficult to watch your child not eat anything at a meal, especially if this is your first time taking a real attempt at fighting picky eating. However, forcing children to eat, and this is something that we'll talk a little bit more as the video goes on, but forcing children to eat essentially creates an unpleasant mealtime experience for them. It's also asking them to override their natural fullness and hunger cues, and it can create more serious problems down the line if this becomes a regular occurrence. Tip number 2, don't offer to make another meal. So you've just taken all your time and you've served an amazing nutritious meal and your family won't eat any of it. What do? Well, I'll tell you what you're not going to do. You're not going to offer to make another meal. All this does is make you a short order cook. It also does not in any way help the picky eating. It only aggravates it more. As difficult as it is to be met with rejection after putting in time to make a healthy meal, it's important to stick to your guns and be persistent. Tip number 3, set a limit on meal times. So your children or your spouse or whoever it is won't eat what you've made. One thing that is helpful is just asking them to stay at the table with you anyways. You don't want to tell them that they can't leave the table until they've eaten, because again, this creates an unpleasant eating experience for them and it doesn't make them any more likely to actually eat the meal. So whether you set a timer, say it's 30 minutes, or you say that can't leave the table until the last family member is done eating. That way they still get to connect with the family and it still is exposing them to those nutritious choices that you've made, which again, you just want to be persistent even if they don't eat, but they get to leave the table at the same time that everybody else does and it still ends up being a pleasant experience for them. Tip number 4, be persistent but not pushy. As hard as it is to be met with constant rejection over presenting a nice lovely meal and just having your kids either throw a tantrum or your care receivers not want to eat any of it, I encourage you to be persistent but not pushy. We don't want to force our family members to eat the meal. Again, just doesn't make it an agreeable experience for anybody and doesn't make them more willing to eat it. Just continuous exposure is what your role is. So continue to offer those meals. I promise that through consistent exposure, people become more willing to try new things and more open to trying them if there's something that they've become familiar with seeing and with experiencing. Tip 5 is to offer foods in different cooking methods, shapes, textures, sizes. For example, if mushy steamed butternut squash doesn't go over well at your table, try spiralized butternut squash. Try mashing it like a mashed potato. Try baking it into some muffins. There's so many different ways that you can incorporate healthy, nutritious foods into your family's dishes. There's a few books out there actually. One of them is The Sneaky Chef. Essentially what this method is just finding ways to take really nutritious vegetables and incorporate into everyday dishes. So in my last video, or one of my last videos, I made brownies out of black beans. Now, I don't encourage this to become your go-to method, because if you're always hiding foods in things or hiding these nutritious foods, children and spouses and partners, they never really learn to eat them when they're not hidden in things. It just becomes more work for you and it doesn't actually open up their repertoire of healthy foods either. Take into account that especially young children have different taste and texture preferences, while some of them might not like mushy food. So know your family and find different ways to offer the same food if it gets rejected. Step number 6 is to get your family involved in the cooking process. This can be as grounding as starting a vegetable garden, or it can just mean getting them to cut up some vegetables with you while you're making dinner. Finding ways to get them involved in the meal making process helps them become more open to then eating the meal itself, because it was something that they helped prepare and they are proud of it and they want to take part in enjoying the meal as well. This is also a great opportunity for connection, for family bonding, and not to mention that knowing how to cook is a really important life skill, and it's just about never too early to start knowing how to cook at least some basics. There are some plastic knives that you can actually find for kids that are safe for them, that won't put them in harm's way if they are learning how to chop or how to cut things in the kitchen for the first time. Tip number 7 is to not pressure, coerce, threaten, or bribe your kids or partner to eat the meal. A lot of the times I get a lot of parents that tell me that they get their kids to eat by promising them dessert. So if you don't eat your meal, you don't get dessert. Now, this does a few things. Number one, it creates a bit of a reward system with food that, again, over time can sometimes become problematic, especially in children. The other thing that it does is that children don't eat the meal because it's something they actually want, but only because it's the promise of something else. We want to naturally nourish their eating cues, their hunger and their fullness cues, and encourage them to try new foods because they want to, not because they've been promised a treat. And remember that forcing or threatening your child to eat the meal is likely to be met with a lot of pushback, and it doesn't make it an agreeable experience for them. They're likely not going to be any more willing to eat what you serve them, and now mealtime has become an unpleasant experience for both you and them. Tip number 8 is to start small. If this is your first attempt at picky eating, there will be a bit of resistance at first. Your child might cry, might whine, your spouse might refuse to eat the meal altogether. But remember that all change starts with small steps. As long as you are continuously exposing them, take the small wins. If it's just a bite of a new food that they tried, that's a huge win already. And serve in small portions. Large portions can be really overwhelming at times, just to anybody, to children more so. Even if it's just a tablespoon of a new food, maybe it's some peas or some broccoli, just a bite of things is more likely to be received and well received rather than serving a whole cup of a new food. Well, FirePower friends, there you have a handful of tips to work on picky eating in your home. Right now, we are eating less meals outside of the home, and it's a good time to work on diversifying your family's meals and getting them to try foods that they might otherwise not have. Remember that this is a process that takes time, but it pays to be persistent. Now, I always love hearing from you guys. You can reach me, Maria, at teamfirepower.com. Leave me a comment down below with your favorite picky eating tips. I'll see you guys in my next video.